Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez took a long, satisfied sip of her coffee and glanced at her tactical display. 47 confirmed kills before breakfast. Not bad for a Tuesday morning on New Bakersfield, though she was hoping to break 50 before the supply drop arrived at noon. Control, this is Tank. She spoke into her comm unit, using the call sign that had somehow evolved from her tendency to solve problems with overwhelming firepower. Minor perimeter adjustment complete. You might want to update the territorial maps. Static crackled for a moment before Commander Zilch's voice emerged, all 6 of his vocal cords vibrating with barely contained panic. Rodriguez, please tell me you mean you moved some fence posts. Maya glanced at the smoking crater where an enemy listening post had been 20 minutes ago, then at the neat row of neutralized infiltration vehicles she'd discovered hidden in the canyon. Well, technically speaking, I did relocate several boundary markers. About 3 kilometers inward from their previous position. 3 kilometers? Rodriguez, that's not your sector. It is now, sir. Maya took another sip of coffee. The morning was really shaping up nicely. Turns out our neighbors have been playing pretty fast and loose with property lines. I thought I'd help clarify things. Through her scope, she watched the last surviving enemy scout scramble away from what used to be his forward observation post. Maya considered taking the shot, then decided against it. Someone needed to report back about the new management policies in this sector. Rodriguez, Zilch's voice had climbed another octave, which was impressive considering Vraxians already sounded like helium-addicted chipmunks. Are you telling me you've single-handedly invaded 3 kilometers of contested territory? Invaded is such an ugly word, Commander. I prefer aggressive landscaping. Maya switched her rifle to semi-automatic and began field stripping it for cleaning. Besides, it's not contested anymore. Pretty decisive, actually. The comm went silent for several minutes. Maya used the time to reload her ammunition packs and update her kill count in her personal log. She was maintaining a solid average this month, which was important for morale. Her morale, specifically. Rodriguez, I need you to return to your assigned patrol route immediately. Maya looked at the tactical display again. 3 enemy supply convoys were approaching from the east, probably to reinforce the positions that no longer existed. It would be rude not to welcome them properly. Copy that, Control. Returning to patrol route. She shouldered her pack and started jogging toward the approaching convoys, just taking the scenic route. What scenic route? Your assigned route is a straight line. Not anymore, sir. I've made some improvements to the local geography. Much more defensible now. Maya settled into a comfortable firing position behind what used to be an enemy bunker. Oh, and you might want to send someone to collect about 47 sets of enemy equipment. Seems wasteful to leave it lying around. The coffee was still warm in her thermos when the first enemy convoy crested the hill. Maya smiled, chambered around, and got back to work. Breakfast could wait another 20 minutes. After all, she had a reputation to maintain. Commander Zilch stared at his tactical display with all 6 of his eyes, each one focusing on a different aspect of the catastrophe that was Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez. In the 3 hours since her minor perimeter adjustment, his quiet frontier posting had somehow become the most strategically important sector in the entire theater of operations. Sergeant Blorf he called to his logistics officer, a gastropian whose species had evolved from something resembling a caffeinated slug. Please tell me Rodriguez hasn't actually requisitioned 17,000 rounds of ammunition for a routine patrol. Blorf's eye stalk swiveled nervously as he consulted his tablet. Well, sir, technically she requisitioned 2,000 rounds. However, she somehow managed to collect an additional 15,000 rounds from, and I quote, field acquisitions and enemy donations. Enemy donations. Apparently, when you eliminate an enemy position, their ammunition becomes available for redistribution. Rodriguez has developed a very efficient collection system. Zilch felt a migraine developing in his primary consciousness lobe. And the territorial boundary changes? According to her field reports, she's established 17 new defensive positions across what used to be a 3-kilometer demilitarized zone. She's calling it proactive border security. Captain Fizz materialized beside them in a shower of excited photons. As an energy being, Fizz had the annoying habit of literally glowing when he got enthusiastic, which was most of the time. This is absolutely fascinating. Rodriguez has achieved in one morning what our strategic planning committee has been trying to accomplish for 8 months. She's supposed to be on perimeter patrol, not launching a one-woman invasion. But sir, Fizz pulsed brighter, her tactical innovations are remarkable. She's identified and eliminated an entire intelligence network that our sensors never detected. The enemy casualty reports are coming in now, and they're describing her as a localized natural disaster. Zilch's comm unit started flashing with incoming priority messages. High Command wanted explanations. The Diplomatic Corps wanted assurances. The enemy hegemony wanted to file a formal complaint about excessive enthusiasm in border disputes. Sir, Blorf interjected, his voice carrying the particular tone of someone about to deliver very bad news. Rodriguez is requesting additional supplies. What kind of supplies? Lunch, and possibly a small tactical nuclear device. She says it's for area denial. Zilch closed all 6 eyes and tried to remember why he'd thought a quiet posting on the frontier would be good for his stress levels. When he'd first read Rodriguez's file, the phrase aggressive initiative had seemed like a positive trait for a perimeter guard. He was beginning to understand why her previous commanding officers had described her as effective but requires careful handling and excellent soldier, but recommend assignment to very distant posting. Sir, you idea. Fizz chimed in, still glowing with academic excitement. I've been analyzing Rodriguez's tactical patterns. She's essentially created a new form of warfare based on what humans call extreme problem solving. Rather than waiting for the enemy to present a threat, she eliminates the possibility of threat by removing the enemy's capacity to threaten. That's called genocide, Captain. Only if you kill everyone. Rodriguez is showing remarkable restraint by limiting herself to military targets, though her definition of military target does seem unusually broad. Zilch's comm unit erupted with another barrage of messages. Apparently, Rodriguez had just eliminated what the enemy thought was a well-hidden command bunker. She'd found it by following the underground power cables she'd discovered while reorganizing the local drainage system. Sergeant Blorf, please prepare a situation report for High Command. And Captain Fizz, I need you to start documenting Rodriguez's methods for the tactical database. What should I tell High Command about the territorial changes? Blorf asked. Zilch looked at the display showing Rodriguez's new defensive line, which had somehow transformed a vulnerable frontier outpost into an impregnable fortress while simultaneously eliminating 3 months' worth of enemy intelligence operations. Tell them we've achieved all strategic objectives ahead of schedule, and request reinforcements. Reinforcements, sir? Not for the enemy. For us. Someone needs to help explain to the Diplomatic Corps why our borders have suddenly moved. Maya had always been good at noticing things other people missed. It was a talent that had gotten her into trouble in civilian life but proved remarkably useful in military applications. While her alien colleagues were still learning to read their sensor displays, Maya had been building a mental map of every anomaly in her assigned sector. The first clue had been the garbage. Nothing says secret enemy base quite like a carefully maintained wilderness area that somehow never accumulated any natural debris. Maya had spent weeks cataloging the subtle differences in vegetation patterns, the too perfect distribution of wildlife, and the suspicious absence of the usual frontier detritus. You see, Maya explained to her increasingly bewildered audience of alien officers via comlink, humans have this thing called pattern recognition. We evolved as persistence hunters, which means we're really good at noticing when something doesn't belong. She gestured toward the smoking remains of what had been a cleverly camouflaged sensor array. Take this lovely little installation. Your standard military scanner would have missed it completely because it was designed to mimic local mineral deposits. But they made one crucial mistake. Which was? Commander Zilch's voice crackled through the speaker. They assumed everyone else is as bad at observation as they are. Maya kicked a piece of twisted metal that had once been state-of-the-art enemy surveillance equipment. See, they built this thing to fool electronic sensors, but they forgot about the Mark I human eyeball. Specifically, they forgot that humans notice when rocks are arranged too neatly. The truth was, Maya had been tracking the enemy network for weeks. Every routine patrol had been a careful intelligence-gathering operation, mapping the locations of hidden installations, identifying patrol patterns, and cataloging enemy capabilities. She'd used her standard-issue equipment in ways that would have horrified the manufacturers and delighted physics professors. The listening post in Grid 7 was particularly clever, Maya continued, now addressing her remarks to Captain Fizz, who was furiously taking notes for his tactical analysis. They'd buried it under what looked like a natural landslide. Except landslides don't usually include right angles, and they definitely don't hum in B-flat. Her approach had been elegantly simple. Instead of trying to match the enemy's technological sophistication, she'd used the one advantage humans had always possessed, the ability to be unpredictably violent in creative ways. While the enemy was preparing for conventional military responses, Maya had been preparing for what she privately called aggressive problem-solving. The beautiful thing about humans, she said, carefully placing charges around what appeared to be an innocent boulder but was actually an enemy communications relay, is that we don't follow the accepted rules of engagement because we didn't read the manual. We just make it up as we go along. The enemy had been operating under the assumption that frontier patrols followed predictable patterns, stuck to assigned routes, and reported unusual activity through proper channels. They hadn't planned for someone who considered unusual activity to be a target of opportunity rather than a bureaucratic problem. Maya's favorite discovery had been the underground supply depot hidden beneath what the enemy had disguised as a natural spring. She'd found it by noticing that the water temperature was exactly 3 degrees too warm for the local geology. A few well-placed explosives had turned their carefully concealed staging area into a very impressive crater and a new source of irrigation for the local ecosystem. The thing is, Maya said, watching the communications relay vanish in a satisfying flash of light and debris, they spent months building this network, probably years planning it. They had contingencies for every conventional response our military might mount. She shouldered her rifle and started jogging toward the next target on her list. But they never planned for someone who'd take one look at their elaborate intelligence operation and think, you know what this needs? More explosions. Through her earpiece, she could hear frantic chatter as alien command staff tried to process the scope of what she'd uncovered and eliminated. The enemy network hadn't just been gathering intelligence, it had been preparing for a major offensive that would have caught the entire sector by surprise. Rodriguez, Commander Zilch's voice had taken on the tone of someone who was beginning to realize he might be dealing with a tactical genius rather than a disciplinary problem. How long have you known about this network? Maya paused to consider the question while she planted charges around what looked like an innocent communications dish, but it was actually feeding targeting data to enemy artillery positions. Known about it? Sir, I've been mapping it since my second week here. I just figured everyone else knew too, and we were all waiting for the right moment to clean house. She stepped back and triggered the detonation. Turns out I was half right. The smoking remains of the communications dish sent a very clear message to anyone still monitoring the network. The rules of engagement had changed, and the new rules were written in high explosives and applied with extreme prejudice. Maya checked her watch. Still had 40 minutes before breakfast. Time for one more perimeter adjustment. The emergency diplomatic session had been called for 0800 hours, which was unfortunate timing because Maya was just hitting her stride. Ambassador Quell of the crystalline hegemony had materialized via quantum hologram in the station's main conference room. his translucent form glittering with what could charitably be called diplomatic outrage. "This is absolutely unacceptable." Quell's voice resonated through multiple harmonic frequencies, a sound like wind chimes having an argument. "The Terran Federation has violated 17 separate non-aggression treaties with this unprovoked assault on our peaceful intelligence gathering operations." Commander Zilch tried to project calm authority while simultaneously tracking Maya's progress on his tactical display. She was currently reorganizing what appeared to be an enemy artillery position about 2 kilometers north of her original patrol route. "Ambassador, I assure you that Lieutenant Rodriguez was operating within the bounds of standard perimeter security. Standard perimeter security does not involve destroying 47 carefully concealed surveillance installations." 49, Captain Fizz interjected helpfully. "She just eliminated 2 more while you were talking." Quell's crystalline structure flickered with irritation. "This is exactly what I mean. Even during peaceful negotiations, your human continues her rampage of destruction." "Now, Ambassador," Sergeant Blorf slithered forward, his diplomatic training taking over, "I think there might be some misunderstanding about the nature of these installations. Our records show they were positioned well within the established neutral zone. They were scientific monitoring stations." Maya's voice crackled through the comm system, slightly breathless but cheerfully matter-of-fact. "Hey, Control? Your scientific monitoring station in Grid 12 was equipped with enough firepower to level a small city. Just thought you'd want to know before the ambassador here files his complaint." Quell's form brightened with indignation. Those were defensive measures. Standard protection for valuable research equipment that happened to include targeting computers, artillery rangefinders, and what appears to be a complete tactical database of our defensive positions. Maya continued. "Fascinating research. Really cutting-edge stuff in the field of how to blow up your neighbors while maintaining plausible deniability." The conference room fell silent except for the distant sound of explosions as Maya continued her work. Zilch realized he was witnessing a master class in aggressive diplomacy, where one side argues about treaty violations while the other side eliminates the evidence. "Ambassador," Zilch said carefully, "perhaps we should focus on preventing future misunderstandings. Clearly, there were some communication errors regarding the nature of these installations." "Communication errors? Your human has single-handedly destroyed 3 months of careful preparation." "Preparation for what exactly?" Maya's voice cut through the diplomatic double-talk with characteristic directness. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like preparation for turning my nice quiet patrol sector into ground zero for a surprise offensive." Quell's harmonic frequencies shifted into what Maya had learned to recognize as the alien equivalent of guilty stammering. "The hegemony maintains the right to conduct legitimate research activities in neutral territories." "Research." "Right." Maya's tone carried the special kind of skepticism that humans reserved for politicians and door-to-door salespeople. "Tell you what, Ambassador, why don't you research this? What happens when you try to establish secret military installations within shooting distance of someone who considers restraint to be a 4-letter word?" Another explosion echoed across the landscape. Zilch checked his display and noted that Maya had just reorganized what the tactical computer had been identifying as a geological anomaly, but which apparently had been concealing enough weaponry to arm a small invasion force. "Perhaps," Blorf suggested with the careful optimism of someone who specialized in cleaning up other people's messes, "we could establish new protocols for territorial monitoring. Something that involves more transparency and fewer hidden artillery positions." Quell's form flickered uncertainly. "The hegemony would be willing to consider such protocols, provided the Terran Federation agrees to restrict the activities of its human operatives." Maya's laughter echoed through the comm system. "Restrict my activities? Ambassador, I haven't even gotten creative yet. This has just been basic housekeeping." The silence that followed was the kind of quiet that happens when everyone suddenly realizes they're standing on the edge of a very deep hole. Word traveled fast in military circles, especially when that word involved a single human soldier casually redefining the strategic balance of an entire sector. Within hours of Maya's morning routine, intelligence reports were flooding in from across the frontier. General Thok of the Hegemony's Third Fleet had been the first to receive the updated situation reports. His species, the Brutarian Confederation, had built their military reputation on methodical, overwhelming force applied through careful planning and superior numbers. They were not accustomed to having their carefully laid plans disrupted by one human with anger management issues and creative problem-solving skills. "Sir," his aide reported, "our forward reconnaissance units are requesting immediate reassignment to any sector that doesn't contain humans." "Reassignment? We have 40,000 troops in this theater." "Yes, sir. They're requesting reassignment for all 40,000 troops." Maya, meanwhile, was discovering that her morning's work had attracted considerably more attention than she'd anticipated. Her comm system was receiving tactical briefing requests from military units across 3-star systems, all wanting to understand how she'd managed to neutralize an intelligence network that galactic security forces hadn't even known existed. "Tank, this is Colonel Vex from Orbital Command," came a new voice through her comm unit. "We need a detailed tactical breakdown of your methods for the strategic database." Maya paused in her examination of what appeared to be an enemy supply cache disguised as a natural cave formation. "Methods?" "Sir, I just shot the bad guys and blew up their stuff." "Not sure that requires a detailed breakdown." "Rodriguez, you've accomplished more in one morning than entire battalions have managed in months of operations. High Command wants to understand how you identified targets that our best intelligence systems missed." "Well, sir, it's like this." Maya began placing charges around the cave entrance. "Your intelligence systems are looking for things that are supposed to be there. I look for things that aren't supposed to be there but are there anyway. Then I make them not be there anymore." "Could you be more specific?" Maya considered this while she programmed the detonator. Humans have this evolutionary quirk where we're really good at spotting predators trying to hide from us. Turns out enemy intelligence operations look a lot like predators trying to hide from us. So I treated them like predators. And then? Well, and then I hunted them. The cave entrance disappeared in a satisfying explosion that sent a mushroom cloud visible from orbit. Turns out the hunting reflexes transfer pretty well to modern warfare. Colonel Vex's voice carried a note of professional admiration. "Rodriguez, are you telling me you've been conducting counterintelligence operations using Stone Age hunting instincts?" "Stone Age hunting instincts and high-tech explosive devices, sir. Best of both worlds." The implications were starting to ripple through military command structures across the sector. If one human could casually dismantle months of enemy preparation using nothing but standard equipment and creative thinking, what could an entire human unit accomplish? "Sir," came Sergeant Blorf's voice on the command channel, "we're receiving reports from enemy positions across the frontier. They appear to be conducting emergency evacuations." "Evacuations? We haven't launched any offensive operations." "No, sir. But word has spread about Rodriguez's morning activities. Enemy units are apparently requesting transfers to any sector that doesn't contain humans. Some are abandoning positions rather than risk encountering what they're calling the human berserker of New Bakersfield." Maya's voice cut through the chatter with characteristic directness. "Berserker? That's a little dramatic. I'm just thorough." "Rodriguez," Colonel Vex asked, "what's your assessment of remaining enemy capabilities in your sector?" Maya consulted her tactical display, which now showed a remarkably clear picture of what had once been a heavily contested frontier zone. "Remaining enemy capabilities? Well, sir, they've still got the capacity to run away really fast. Everything else seems to be experiencing technical difficulties." "Technical difficulties?" "Yeah, specifically, they're having trouble existing in a non-exploded state." The comm channels fell silent as the full scope of the situation became clear. One human assigned to routine patrol duty had single-handedly eliminated an enemy threat that conventional forces would have required months to identify and neutralize. And she still hadn't had breakfast. Maya finally found time to sit down for breakfast at 1,100 hours, which technically made it brunch, but she wasn't particularly concerned with terminology. She'd appropriated a small table from what used to be an enemy command post and set it up with a commanding view of her newly reorganized sector. The coffee was still warm, which was the important thing. "Control, this is Tank," she spoke into her comm unit while spreading what might generously be called jam on a piece of military-issue bread. "Perimeter secure. No further enemy activity detected." Rodriguez. Commander Zilch's voice had taken on the weary tone of someone who'd spent the morning explaining to increasingly senior officers why his sector had suddenly become the most successful military operation in recent galactic history. "Please tell me you're finally done with your adjustments." Maya surveyed her handiwork. The smoking craters that had once been enemy positions were cooling nicely in the morning sun. The defensive line she'd established was textbook perfect. If the textbook had been written by someone with a deep appreciation for overwhelming firepower and creative use of explosives. "Done?" "Sir, this was just morning cleanup. I haven't even started on the real work yet." The silence that followed was so profound that Maya could hear Captain Fizz's energy form crackling with nervous excitement somewhere in the background. "The real work?" Zilch finally managed. "Well, yeah, I mean, this sector's pretty secure now, but there are at least 6 other grid areas that could use some attention. I've been studying the tactical reports from neighboring sectors, and they've got some serious efficiency problems." Sergeant Blorf's voice joined the conversation with the careful tone of someone trying to prevent a galactic incident. "Rodriguez, perhaps you could explain your efficiency standards." Maya took a bite of her breakfast and considered the question. "It's simple, really. If there are still enemies in shooting range, the job isn't finished. And according to my calculations, shooting range includes anywhere I can accurately deliver ordnance within, say, a 50-kilometer radius." 50 kilometers? "I've been working on extending my effective range. Turns out if you're creative with trajectory calculations and explosive payloads, you can solve problems from much further away than most people realize." Through her binoculars, Maya could see enemy forces retreating from positions across the entire frontier. Word of the human berserker had apparently spread faster than their communication networks could handle. Entire battalions were abandoning carefully prepared positions rather than risk encountering what military analysts were already calling the Rodriguez effect. "Sir," she continued, "I've been thinking about requesting a transfer." "A transfer?" Zilch's voice climbed several octaves. "Rodriguez, you've just achieved the most successful single-day operation in sector history." "Exactly. This place is getting boring." Maya finished her breakfast and started cleaning her rifle. "I was thinking maybe one of those contested systems closer to the core worlds, somewhere with more targets and better coffee." The comm channel erupted with overlapping voices as various officers tried to simultaneously congratulate Maya on her success and to convince her that New Bakersfield was exactly where she needed to be. "Rodriguez," came a new voice, crisp with the authority of very senior rank. "This is Admiral Cross from Sector Command. Please disregard any thoughts of transfer. You are far too valuable in your current position." Maya grinned and shouldered her equipment pack. "Copy that, Admiral. But you might want to send some reinforcements. I get the feeling our neighbors are going to want to renegotiate the border arrangements, and I'd hate for them to feel unwelcome." She stood up, brushed the crumbs off her uniform, and looked out at the transformed landscape of her patrol sector. What had been a contested frontier zone 12 hours ago was now unquestionably human territory, marked by smoking craters and the kind of tactical clarity that only came from the liberal application of high explosives. Besides, Maya added, checking her ammunition count and finding it satisfactorily adequate for whatever the afternoon might bring, someone needs to make sure these new borders stay properly maintained. As she walked back toward her patrol route, Maya reflected on the morning's accomplishments. 47 confirmed kills, 3 kilometers of territorial acquisition, and 1 completely dismantled enemy intelligence network. Not bad for a day that hadn't even officially started yet. And the best part. She'd finally figured out the optimal coffee to explosives ratio for maximum operational efficiency. Now that was what she called a productive morning,